Hello, everyone. Welcome on into the Wolverine podcast here. It is Thursday, July 17th. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas. Clayton Safey, I believe, as we record this, is on the golf course somewhere. Seems like if he's not with us, he's on the golf course somewhere. So good for Clayton to get out there and hit the links a little bit. I've only been out once this year myself. Chris, welcome back. We between vacations and I was gone for 2 weeks. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to be back here.
Man, your beard's gotten longer. Congratulations on the honeymoon. I hope it was everything. I hope my $5 that I gave you for your wedding went a long way over there. I don't know what the exchange rates are now, but hey, it was fun to watch it online and see everything that you guys did. Well deserved. I hope you had a really nice time.
Yeah, it was great. For those, I guess I didn't post a ton, but did a week in Germany, then we did a week in the UK. Saw a little bit of everything over there. So we stayed in Frankfurt, but took trains to Cologne, took trains to Heidelberg, Mainz. We stayed in Munich for a few days.
Awesome.
Went to Neuschwanstein and Linderhof castles. It was incredible. And then we spent the week in London, and London is London. That felt a lot like being over here. So that was a lot of fun, but still working on some jet lag. I picked up a little bit of a travel cold on my way back, so bear with me there. But I also did a lot of reading while we were, a lot of these trains we took were an hour or a couple hours, or the day trips we took to the castles were literally an entire day on a bus. So read, thumbed through a lot of these national football previews. I had the Phil Steele preview with me. Finally got my hands on our preview, which was nice. I came home to a stack of those. Those went out. So shout out to everyone who got their Michigan football preview magazines from us. And I guess given that, a quick housekeeping note here, Monday, we will be at the Champion Circle golf outing doing a live stream at 1 p.m. So that will be our Monday show. We're going to have a rotating kind of cast and characters coming through like we did last year. So that's going to be our Monday show. But that comes, and I won't be going this year, but you guys will head out to Big Ten Media Days in Vegas. So it's here. This is the last show we'll do before Big Ten Media Days. So I thought that would be a good time for us to look at, kind of our final takeaways and what we think about some of these teams, what we think about Michigan heading into that event, maybe how this conference tiers out, some things we'd like to hear, if not just from the Wolverines, some of the, the rivals of the teams on the schedule. So I feel like today was a good day to do that. And Chris, I'll start with this. I mean, to tie it into our football preview being out there in the wild, which you can, they're on newsstands. You can get them I've seen them at Barnes & Noble. I believe Rally Houses carry them as well. You can get directly from us at the WolverineOnDemand.com. When you were putting this together, when we were putting this together, what's something that came into focus for you, maybe not just about Michigan, but about this conference in general through some of the work that we did on that preview?
Yeah, that it's still pretty top heavy, right, in this conference. Number one, I think there are probably 4 teams, if we're being honest. If you count Michigan as one of the 4 potential playoff teams, beyond that, it would be a stretch, in my opinion, right? And everybody's pointing to Penn State. I still think they have plenty to prove. Drew Eller, I'm not convinced. But to me, my biggest takeaway, number one, was they love the young talent on this team. And everybody says, yeah, we're going to be better this year. There's no question about it. But wait for years 2 and 3 of the Bryce Underwood era. Then we're going to be lights out and competing for national championships. So that was number one. Number two, how much respect they have for Chip Lindsey as the offensive coordinator. This guy's kind of proven himself everywhere he's been. Last year, he had a 1,000-yard rusher, a 1,500-yard rusher, in the second year in a row that it was 1,300 or more. He knows that Sharon wants to run the ball, AB, and that's exactly what they're going to do. But he also has a plan when it comes to getting the ball to the playmakers. Everybody says it, right? Even Josh Gaddis in the back in the day, speed and space and all that crap. But Chip Lindsey, we've seen it. Scheming receivers open. I asked him, we did a Q&A for the football preview, and he said, it still comes down to guys making contested catches, AB, but we have a few more guys that can do that. So, and then I think one of the things that I really took from it was I think Michigan's got the best defense in the Big Ten, and I think defense travels, and I think they feel really, really good about that side of the ball if they can shore up the secondary just a little bit. If Rod Moore is healthy, sounds like he's still on track. He still had some pain in June, but He's coming back, and he said he's going to be back by August. So people who want to read about that can read about that in the football preview too. So overall, I think this is a year where people look at the schedule and they say, well, if ever you had a schedule to make a run, this is it. But then I look at those games on the road, and I look at Nebraska, and I look at USC, which is going to be a tough one. I don't care what anybody says, right? At Michigan State, is that going to be tricky? They're not very good, but you never know. So to me, this is a 9-3 team. If they go 10-2, they make the playoff. I wouldn't put it past them. But overall, AB, the sense that I got is that they're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll start with Michigan first. I would agree with you on all that. I think a lot of it too, especially the offense, the defense is going to do the heavy lifting this year, right? Like Michigan is going to go, I won't say as far as they can take them, because that was a good defense last year that was held back in some games because it was on the field longer than it needed to be. The offense is going to be what determines the ceiling now, and if it's the offensive line doesn't come together and maybe Bryce Underwood isn't quite ready and the wide receivers aren't what it needs to be yet, could they be an 8-4 team? I think that's within the range of outcomes, but I think that they have the ingredients to one. I think you talk about them having the best defense in the Big Ten, and I'd have to think about that. I think they're certainly up there, at least at worst, a top 3 defense in my opinion, but I think what you do have that could be the best in the Big Ten is the 1-2 punch that you have at running back. And that's going to be, to me, the engine that powers this team, this offense this year, and what they're able to do off the run game and how they're able to maybe spoon feed and make things easy for the passing game and Bryce Underwood. I think Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall, it's, we said coming into last year, Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings are 1A and 1B, but we saw that, fluctuate, and obviously Khalil was the better back of the two. I do truly think that you have two guys that can be lead backs that are going to set a tone and be, whatever defenses do to react to those guys being a factor. It's going to open things up for Bryce Underwood. It's going to open things up for the passing game. If your offensive line, I think, is even just average. I think, obviously Michigan has a much higher bar than that, but if you can put together an average offensive line, I think this is going to be a darn good football team that is able to complement what the defense does, and the defense will be better because of the offense being able to at least string some drives together and finishing drives with points. You're going to be able to do that with a guy like Dominic Zavada. You're a lot more comfortable when you have a guy who can hit field goals from 60 yards out and whatnot. So I think the pieces are there for them to set a good baseline early and continue to kind of peel the layers back of that offense. For the conference at large, I think you're right in that there's this group at the top, and I do think that Michigan is in that group. I picked them to go 10-2, and I get the way that the schedule worked out, I have them in the Big Ten championship game against Penn State. I think Penn State will win the Big Ten, but there's that group of 4 at the top where you've got Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and I'm willing to throw Michigan into that group. I think they're going to push for that spot, but everyone wants to play the game of who is this year's Indiana. And I think that any team in the projected standings between, that 4th and maybe 8th or 9th spot in the right set of circumstances because of unbalanced schedules could be a team that wins 10 games or in the Big Ten, maybe it only takes nine wins to get into the playoff. And when I was trying to rack my brain of who is this year's Indiana, to me, I think it just is Indiana, because I know that they got a lot of heat last year because of the schedule, but they're bringing a lot of guys back. They're bringing more than a few guys back who were first team All Big Ten. I think that they could potentially be better at quarterback this year. And for as much as we laughed at the used car salesman at Big Ten Media Days last year, Curt Cignetti does just win. And he did that at maybe, one of the toughest places to do that in the Power 5 pretty quickly last season. So I'm interested in your thoughts there. I mean, I think that this year's Indiana could just be Indiana, but Washington's a team that could jump into that mix. Yep. Iowa is always a team that's in that mix. Illinois is a team that brings a lot back from last year. So, what are your thoughts on that cluster of teams?
Yeah, Illinois was the one
up?
that I was going to bring up, and I'm not sold on them. They've got a tougher schedule. I was going down the line, and I see a 7-5, 8-4 season for them. Everybody's like, well, they got everybody coming back, so on and so forth. They had some luck last year. If you look at Illinois' schedule, nice job there, Gunther. They're going to lose to Ohio State, right? Indiana's going to be a tough game for them. USC is going to be a tough game for them. Wisconsin's going to be tougher for them. I understand that it's not a daunting schedule. At the same time, I just don't think they're that great. I really don't. They've got some playmakers. They did some nice things last year, but they kind of are who they are. So when I look at potential surprise teams, I like Washington. I like their quarterback. I like their coach. Jed Fish in year 2, I think, is going to have a nice year up there. And that's kind of a dangerous game at home, too. Everybody's asking, well, what's the one game that kind of scares you? You know, if you're thinking, well, we should win this game, everybody's going to point to Michigan State and say, well, if they're a little bit better, it's a really tough place to play. And it is for Michigan, not for everybody, but for Michigan, it is. They get up for that game. But with Washington is the one that I look at and say, if there's a team that could really make a big jump this year, it's them. So, and I give Indiana credit, and I give Cignetti credit. We made fun of him. Do I think they're going to repeat what they did last year? No. Do I think that he is all that he said he is? I Googled him and I would say yes. You know, the guy's a good football coach. So, but it'll be fascinating to see how everything plays out. Was it your article I read that Big Ten teams were 6-22 last year when they had to go across 2 time zones? And
I believe that was Clayton, but yes, that was.
Regardless, it's that is a tough. I mean, it's tough for anybody, but those West Coast teams have to do it more often, obviously. So it's going to be fun to watch. I love Big Ten football. I'm still not used to this though, AB. When you have to, when you look at Washington and as a conference game, it's so weird to me. But we're getting used to it, and it is what it is. So I think if you look at the Michigan schedule, there are only a few gimmies on there, right? Northwestern is probably one. I think there are tickets on sale, or were on sale today, by the way, for Michigan fans who wanted those. Obviously, the opener, New Mexico, Central Michigan, with all due respect, Anthony, to your alma mater, and then maybe Purdue. So after that, there are 4 real swing games in Oklahoma, Nebraska, USC, and Ohio State. And then Maryland shouldn't be that tough, but Michigan's had problems going out there before. They aren't as talented as they have been, but still a tricky game before Ohio State. So, but hey, it's going to come down to those 4 games, if we're being honest. And if you split them, let's just be honest. If you split them, you make the playoff. If you take 1 out of 4, you have an outside shot. If you beat Ohio State, for example, and lose to Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Southern Cal, then you still have a shot at the playoffs. So I think that is the goal for this year. I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but I'm not looking at this team as a contender. But if they can get to the playoff, I think that would be a nice feather in their cap.
I feel like if you find a way to get 9 wins, to me is a good season. I think it becomes a very good season if you are 9-3 and make the playoff. I think you make the playoff, it's very good plus, and anything from there is gravy. So I would agree with you there. I'm glad that you brought up that we just talked about Washington, because you look at their schedule, and I don't know, maybe Megan can bring it up here. There it is. Their first, they have a runway here where their first 3 games they play Colorado State. I believe that is it UC Davis. They go to Washington State, and they host Ohio State at home in the first month of the season. And you cited the number, and that was from a Clayton story a couple weeks ago, where Big Ten teams traveling, across several time zones last year were 6-22. Ohio State, and I want to talk about them in a second, but that's a game where if you're Washington and you start 3-0 and then you're able to get one over Ohio State, which I believe that's a Friday night game too, so it would be a bit of a short week. You've got Maryland and Rutgers after that. They could come into Michigan on October 18th, sitting there at 6-0 with a chance to, if you get a win at Michigan, then they're starting to talk college football playoffs. So that they're super intriguing from that standpoint. To flip over to the Ohio State side of things, I think something that I've and I wrote about this, I believe it was my days are all screwed up here, but
sure.
Upon my return to the United States, I wrote something along the lines of, I think that if Ohio State is ever, and don't get me wrong, I mean, on paper, they still might have the most talent in the Big Ten. They have, I have no issue saying they might have the two best players in college football, but you flip over to it and you look at their schedule. They're going to open with Texas at home. That's a team that, look no further than what they came into Michigan last year and did as a national title contender. Ohio State lost a bunch on defense. They replaced both coordinators. They're going to break in a new quarterback. Matt Patricia's the guy running their defense, which locally we know what that looks like. If Ohio State kind of comes out and they lose their opener and then they have to go out to Washington a couple weeks after that, I don't think it's crazy to suggest they might start the year 2-2, and then their schedule in the back half isn't super easy either. They're going to host Penn State. They're going to they head to Wisconsin, which I don't think Wisconsin's going to be very good, but it's still tough to go play there. And then you end the season at Michigan. So if ever there's a year for that program to feel a little bit of mortality, this would be they're super ripe for the picking this year, I would say.
Yeah, new quarterback, and it'll be fascinating. It really will. And I haven't looked at Ohio State in the last several years and said, really, boy, that's a daunting schedule for them, right? When you look at Michigan, for example, last year, and you're like, holy crap, this is like murderer's row, So, and I don't think that's the case this year either for Ohio State. I think that, Washington's tricky, right? But I think that's a winnable game for them. And then you talked about the second half of that schedule. When I look at that, Penn State at home, you know what? They're going to win that game. They just do. They beat Penn State. That's a tradition, kind of like Michigan's tradition of beating Ohio State now. So I look at those last 6 games, really 7, and Illinois, I guess. Yeah, again, I expect them to win that game. I really do. But if you look at the last 7 games, I see 1, 2, 3 in a row going into the Michigan game that are going to be almost guaranteed W's. So, but regardless, their goal, obviously, their only goal is to beat Michigan and to make the playoff. And so you're talking 3 losses. It's certainly possible. If you're right, if they go 2-2 to start the season, and again, Washington could definitely get them. That's on Michigan's bye week, by the way. So going to be watching football that night and having a lot of fun with that. So then it could be one of those years for them. But to me, this is a program that generally does not lose to the teams that they shouldn't lose to, and other than Michigan. And that last year. So, and we know that Michigan's in their heads again, which is beautiful. So it's hard not to fast forward and look ahead to that Michigan-Ohio State game, Anthony. But you know what? That's going to be a fun one. And if Michigan has a chance at the playoff going into that game, that either way, the atmosphere is going to be electric, but that would just make it even double.
They're also talented enough to just beat Texas and Washington, and all of a sudden you're wondering if they'll lose a game at all. So
exactly. Yeah,
it's going to be kind of crazy. So all of that being said, you guys are going to get on a plane and go to Vegas next week. What are some things you're looking to hear out of that event from the Michigan side of things?
Yeah, that's a tough one because you never really get anything out of that, right? That one year was fun when Jim Harbaugh said, we're going to beat Ohio State or die trying. It's a nice soundbite. What you're trying to do is you got to wade through all of the Ohio State writers trying to get Michigan players and coaches to say something they shouldn't, number one, right? Why, like that one kid that one year, why didn't you bring J.J. McCarthy? They must not have faith in him. And I'm like, you're a moron, right? It had nothing to do with that. So to me, you're going to hear, it's basically, I'll be honest, it's basically fluff, right? Hopefully we hear good news on Rod Moore and his injury, Michigan safety coming back from knee surgery, and that he's running and ready to go for opening day. But they are very cautious about what they say about injuries too, AB. So, but that would be nice if we heard that he got full clearance, for example, that, maybe they got plans that maybe a couple corners really stepped up in the summer and 7-on-7s or something like that, because that's been an issue for this team. And then I want to hear that Davis Warren is back, even though he's not going to factor into the quarterback competition much. It's going to be Bryce Underwood's show. I want to hear some good things about him and his recovery. But other than that, this is basically trying to get sound bites, other programs trying to get sound bites, and you're basically just talking a lot of fluff pieces. But we'll see. It's year 2 of Sharon Moore. and it's always fun to be there, no matter what. In Vegas, I still don't get it, but I'm not going to complain as long as we come back in one piece. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. As long as Clay and I make it back, I'll be happy. And it's really kind of the kickoff of football season for us.
The most annoying thing about the Vegas destination this year is they're bringing everyone out there to announce that there's going to be a Big Ten championship game there probably next. That's it's one of those, like, do we really need to come to this meeting? It could have just been an email sort of things. So it's, you want to hear how maybe some of the new really the only thing at this, because we're just so in it every day now, there's not a whole lot to glean from these events anymore. But you want to hear, and they'll have Max Bredesen, Ernest Hausman, Derek Moore there. All three of those guys are great. It's not the most buzzworthy media contingent that Michigan will have sent to this event either. So you really just, it comes down to maybe some of the portal guys that you picked up in the spring, how they've, acclimated themselves, some of the freshmen that have showed up this summer and got themselves into workouts. But really, this is just more of a, I won't say, maybe networking event isn't the word, but it's just a little reminder that by the time you get there, they'll be 37 days away from kickoff, I believe. So it's we're not wishing summers away, like you like to say, but it is close. It is approaching. So any other final thoughts on Big Ten football media days, any of that coming up here?
Two captains I saw there, I think, and Ernest Hausman and Max Bredesen. I think Rod Moore will be a captain. Who's the fourth captain? Who's the other captain on offense? Giovanni El-Hadi maybe step up, or it's hard to really think of an obvious one. Greg Crippen's a quiet guy. So I was trying to think, who would that guy be? And I can't come up with a fourth.
I'll give you a dark horse.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan McCulley. They've been very happy with him in the wide receiver room. So I'm not saying it'll happen, but maybe he's, remember last year, Josiah Stewart was named an alternate captain, and then halfway through the year, they elevated him to regular captain. So like you said, of course, you've got Bredesen and Moore back. Those guys will be two-time captains, which is always, quite the designation to have. So, before we get out of here, a little bit of a shorter show today. Was it Sunday you guys got to go watch Michigan practice, or Michigan basketball practice, and talk to the guys and saw the team? What were some of the things you picked up from that?
Man, the talent level, AB, number one, it was brutal. These guys were really getting after each other, really getting after it defensively. You see some scrimmage situations and really, when you're talking about pickup ball, where guys just aren't covering anybody and it's just a three fest or something like that. It was nothing like that. These guys were getting after each other. You can tell that they all like each other. But I was talking to one of our colleagues, and he was looking at the five on the floor. He goes, look at these guys. It looks like a pro team. Then you look at the other end, and you're like Yaxel Lendeborg's on the other end of the floor. It was unbelievable what these guys were doing. Whereas Johnson Jr., people are going to love him. I wrote this. He has some Chris Webber mannerisms. He's not Chris Webber. Nobody's Chris Webber. I'm just saying the way that he carries himself, the way he uses his lower body on box outs, the way he finishes. Got great hands, but he is an absolute workhorse. He's going to be really tough for Big Ten teams to deal with. Elliot Cadeau getting into the paint is really quick, unbelievably quick. So I got to tell you, Trey McKinney doesn't look like a freshman at all. There is just so much talent on this team, and they're going to be well coached. The biggest question is, how do you get minutes for all these guys? So shooting was really good. Winters Grady was filling it up. Trey McKinney was filling it up. LJ Kaysen has made a huge jump, in my opinion. So these guys, this is going to be a really good team. This team is going to contend in the Big Ten, has the potential to make a deep run in the tournament. We never predict that because you never know. Depends on draws and everything else, AB. But and another thing, just a great group of kids, man. Just really, really good people. And that's what you love to see in a team.
It's pretty exciting when you get to watch them in July. I don't think we got our first look at them until the team media day in what was it, October last year. Yeah. So that means Dusty May's excited to show them off and give everyone a look as
He's
well.
A stud. Good Lord, is he a stud? Unbelievable. I've said this to many people. Is there a coach in the country that you would trade him for? And I'd have to say no, given his age and given what he brings to the table in terms of recruiting and coaching. I think they got one of the best coaches in the country. I wouldn't trade him for anybody.
No, I'd have to sit and think about that,
Yeah.
but we're kind of, there are so many guys now that have, the guys that have been at these blue chip programs where like you've had your Roy Williams and guys like that who have retired or stepped away. And I don't know there's anyone, in terms of upward trajectory and what we've seen so quickly. You've got, for as much heat as, and I'm not going to turn this into a Ward manual, discussion, but it already looks like a home run, and they have the proof of concept from last year. They not only made the NCAA tournament, they won the Big Ten tournament, they made the Sweet 16. We're a couple bad minutes away from, heck, maybe playing for a chance to go to the Final Four. They punched way above their weight class last year, and now they've got even better pieces and a lot more roster flexibility and optionality, which with some of the things that they could do. What an exciting time to be a Michigan fan, whether it's football, basketball, or what have you. So we ran the Thursday chat today. There's always people that ask, are you more excited? It seems like every week we get the question, Are you more excited for football or basketball? And mine is both. I would just say that it probably skews towards football only because we're closer to football at the moment. But by the time, we go to wherever the Big Ten basketball media day is, I'll probably be just as fired up for basketball to start. So for whatever reason, cosmically, it hasn't worked out a lot where both are good at the same time. This is a chance to be one of the better dueling outputs that these two programs have this year. So it's incredibly exciting.
Big Ten Media Day probably in Hawaii for basketball, and I'm okay with that. Minnesota, I was not okay with that. Hawaii, I'll make that trip. So, but you're right. It's a loaded team. I think they're going to contend in the Big Ten. It was funny talking to Trey McKinney, asking about Michigan State, how important the game was. He said, "I want to beat them twice." These guys are going to have every chance to win the Big Ten, in my opinion, and they've got the depth here. AB too. That's the thing that they might have been lacking last year. They are not lacking that this year, and fully trust Dusty May to get the most out of this team.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that's going to do that for us. Be sure to like this video if you're watching the video version. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can hear the audio editions of our shows wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. Be sure to use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access to our site for only $1. Take advantage of that. That's what Clayton Safety calls the best deal in America. And we will speak to you on Monday. It's 1 p.m. We will be live from the Champion Circle golf outing out at Plymouth St. John. So excited. I believe there are still dinner tickets available. So if you'd like to come out and hang out at that event, please do so. It goes to obviously a good cause of NIL efforts at Michigan. So we will be out there. That will be our Monday show. And we'll see where things go from there with Big Ten Media Days next week and more. So for Chris Ballas, for producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again next time.